Whether it's worshipping the Holy Light, dedicating yourself to the Moon Goddess Elune, venerating the ancestors of past generations, or even devoting yourself in worship to the Dark Titan Sargeras himself, there are many different faiths and religions to be found in the World of Warcraft. Today, we'll be going over every different religion and faith that can be found in WoW, what their organizations look like and how they're run, who their members are and what they specifically believe and follow. Stick around to the end to see some of the least known and strangest religions and their practices. You'll be amazed at how many there are and how widely different their beliefs are. Let's get into it. Religions and beliefs centered around the light. Church of the Holy Light. Many races across Azeroth and beyond follow and worship the light. The most well-known organization to do so is the Church of the Holy Light. Its origins begin about 2,800 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, when humanity was fighting the Amani Empire in the Troll Wars. Among them was a female warrior named Meldar. After the war, she dedicated herself to taking care of humanity's veterans, and during this time, she started to receive visions from the light. In her dreams, she saw 5 strange figures that were filled with holy power and imparted her mind with the wisdom of holiness, protection, justice, retribution, and compassion. When these wordless teachings were practiced into action, she could use the light's power to cure wounds and illnesses. Together with the others who had received the same visions, they wrote down and codified these 5 attributes into tenets. This new movement sparked a widespread faith in the light, and it became the predominant human religion. A few centuries later, and it was in Lordaeron that these same tenets were officially codified, and these traditions and beliefs based on the light became the foundation for the Church of the Holy Light. The church then spread the faith throughout the 7 human kingdoms, where they built temples, shrines, and churches across human-owned lands as places of worship. And these teachings even attracted followers from other races such as High Elves, Dwarves, and Gnomes. The church's central location in Lordaeron, named the Cathedral of Capital City, was effectively destroyed during the War with the Scourge, but it has since reformed itself at the Cathedral of Light in Stormwind City, which now stands as a central location for its followers. There is a hierarchy of leadership in the church. From the top, you have the Archbishop, who acts as the representative of the organization and spiritual leader of the devotees of the light. The Archbishop is also an important member of the Alliance's leadership. Right below them in the hierarchy are bishops, and then under them you have high priests, who are high-ranking senior priest members of the church. Usually where a high priest is located, whether it be in a chapel, church, or abbey, they would be the highest ranking member in that place and ensuring the activities and organizations of the other priests that fall under their jurisdiction. The classes that are usually members of the Church of the Holy Light are priests and also paladins. If devotees of the church want to become a priest, they start as acolytes, and to become a paladin, they start off as squires. Members of the church who finally become priests then become a part of the clergy. They receive their first robe and are then referred to as brother or sister. Prior to the First War, the priests were largely known as clerics, and they would help run and take care of churches or abbeys and help those of their faith. When the First War started, they were called upon to help aid on the battlefield with healing. They were not well suited to the harsh realities of the battlefields, and so their numbers were greatly reduced, if not outright basically destroyed. So, Archbishop Alonsis Fowl decided to create a new order that would become the military arm of the Church of the Holy Light, and these would be paladins. These Knights of the Silver Hand were chosen from priests, clerics, and even warriors. They underwent the ritual of empowerment when they finally became a part of the order. Besides defending humanity during the Second War, they were also known to minister to the masses during the war, and also gather within churches to deepen their faith. Culture among those who are a part of the church in an official capacity is varied. Some use prayer beads in their concentration of the light, while others apparently use self-flagellation to cleanse their sins and impurities. Contrary to popular belief, priests and paladins of the church are not bound by an oath of celibacy or chastity, and freely marry and have children, as can be seen with Tyrion Fordring or even Alexandros Mograine. Besides these official roles within the church itself, there are of course its followers: humans, dwarves, high elves, half-elves, gnomes, Draenei, and worgen. All of those who follow the teachings, whether they are leaders or devotees, believe in being dedicated to creating a world of honor and justice, striving to aid others and to be good in all their actions. Sacrifice and courage are both founding principles of the church, and although the religion is more philosophic than theistic, its practitioners do believe their devotion connects them to a greater mysterious force in the universe. The philosophy taught in the church comes down to 3 teachings which are known as the 3 virtues: respect, tenacity, and compassion. When these tenets are acted on, they feel they help create a world everyone can appreciate, a world of honor and justice. These virtues are followed and applied by all members of the church, and their writings can be found written down in the Tome of Valor. Apparently, blasphemy against the light has never been shown to be punished by the church, but it does incur the animosity of the followers of the church. The Church of the Holy Light and the light itself has become a central part of all civilized human society, as their primary religion and a staple of worship, respect, and honor. The Scarlet Crusade. Standing in contrast to the Church of the Holy Light is the Scarlet Crusade. Although their hierarchy is similar to the Church of the Holy Light, they are a fanatical religious sect that has broken off from the church. This group formed from a faction that started to grow within the Knights of the Silver Hand. The faction was intolerant of what they deemed as lesser races. After the Silver Hand had collapsed during the Third War, some of the survivors regrouped and tried to fight the Scourge within Lordaeron. As they started forming among survivors of towns in Lordaeron, they decided that retaking their homeland was a human affair, and so would not let any join them but humans. Their initial main location was a monastery not far from Capital City, which they named Scarlet Monastery. Their fanaticism can be seen in how they would patrol the villages of Lordaeron, slaying innocent townfolk thinking they were infected with the plague. By the time of Vanilla WoW, the Scarlet Crusade had established their own church to persuade people to join. And at some point in the past few years, they started to accept members of different races, including High Elves, Dwarfs, and humans from other kingdoms besides Lordaeron. More recently though, they've gone back to the idea that non-humans are unclean, though they still accept humans from other kingdoms, but only after they have been tested by dangerous trials. Becoming obsessed with eradicating the undead and retaking their homeland, being intolerant of all other races, they started to believe that any and all outsiders were potential carriers of the undead plague and thus must be destroyed. At their headquarters in the Scarlet Monastery are a garrison of fanatical zealot warriors, and also High Inquisitor Sally Whitemane, who is the head of those who eliminate any who oppose their doctrine or teachings and they consider heretics. Their leadership includes former Paladins with the title of High Commander, Commander, Crusader, High Inquisitor, and even High Lord. As for their clergy, you'll find many titles similar to those found in the Church of the Holy Light, like Archbishop, High Priest, and High Clerist. Their fanatical actions are mostly tolerated by the rest of Azeroth, though out of ignorance. And although both the Alliance and the Church of the Holy Light have distanced themselves from the actions of the Scarlet Crusade officially, they have done so without trying to interfere. Prior to its recent decline, they even had recruitment officers stationed within the Alliance, even inside the Cathedral of Light. As of the end of the Fourth War, all that remains of the Scarlet Crusade is a very small group left from its ashes, calling themselves the Scarlet Brotherhood, who lay claim to the same Scarlet ideology, and who are politically and religiously opposed to the Alliance and the Church of the Holy Light. Blood Elf Light Worship. When the Blood Elves used to be High Elves, some of them were members of the Church of the Holy Light. Some were a part of the original Order of the Silver Hand, and they even had priestly chapters there in Silvermoon. After Silvermoon was invaded by the Scourge and the Sunwell destroyed, most of the elves became disillusioned with the light, holding it in contempt for failing them in their hour of need. A great example of this is with Lady Liadrin, who was a high priestess of the church. She ended up renouncing her vows to the light due to what happened. Though not all high elves outside of Silvermoon had renounced their faith, they continued to rely on the light and the teachings of the church. Some of them who still had faith in the light and continued to hold on to it were exiled south to Qualithian Lodge. By the time the elves were now named Blood Elves, they had been sent to Naru, and the Blood Elves then decided to take the light from it by force, bending it to their will for their own needs and creating their paladin order known as Blood Knights. Other paladins of the world live by strict moral doctrine to wield the light and its blessings, but Blood Knights circumvented this by forcibly taking it from the Naru that they held captive, though they weren't free of consequences from doing this. Some suffered constant headaches, while others had to overcome physical pain to invoke their powers. Others had suppressed emotional issues reawaken. When the Sunwell was finally restored, the Blood Elves abandoned their use of the light by force and returned to their old ways. Now, through the Sunwell itself, they would ask and receive of the light's blessing to wield their powers. Blood Elf priests who follow the light and teach it now are also known to give sermons, which is associated with the giving of holy blessings and light worship. As it stands with the Sunwell now restored with holy power, some Blood Elves still follow the teachings of the Church or their own personal faith, while others see the light as a philosophy while drawing still on the Well's powers. Draenei Light Worship. The Draenei and their culture have deep ties to worshipping and revering the light, and what some would call its emissaries, the Naaru, with some even worshipping the Naaru themselves. Their very society is centered around the holy light of creation. The Naaru helped the Draenei in their escape from the Burning Legion as they sailed across the cosmos. Deeply affected by the Naaru's words and actions, they vowed to honor the light and to uphold the Naaru's altruistic ideals. Because of this, the Draenei's relationship with the light is deeply tied with the Naaru themselves. Just like the Church of the Holy Light, the Draenei have their own religious institutions and holy places of worship, such as chapels and temples. The Vindicator Sanctum on the Exodar is one such place. The Draenei also have a priesthood named the Omanai, who reside in the temple of Tel Hamat on Outland. They stayed behind when the Draenei fled Outland so they could keep a presence in their holy places. Another Draenei priestly group is the Aldor, which was once led by Valen. They are tasked with safeguarding Draenei holy sites and altars. Also, their military arm is the Hand of Argus, a group of paladins and vindicators. While most Draenei worship the light itself as a concept, some Draenei choose to venerate and recognize individual Naaru for their religious blessings. Offerings to the Naaru used to be left at the Temple of Karabor on Draenor, and those who are a part of the Army of the Light, such as the Lightforged Draenei, created by Zira, could probably be imagined as having reverence toward that Naaru specifically. Tauren, Sunwalkers, and Anshe. Tauren, who venerate Anshe, their sun god, receive power from the light from their beliefs. Anshe, who is the right eye of the Earthmother in Tauren belief, represents the sun. In their faith of Anshe, they receive power from the light, which is associated with this deity. For Tauren, the sun and the light are both synonymous with Anshe, and when they refer to the light, they use the term Anshe's light, the light of the sun, or even the sun's light. To use their powers, they pray to Anshe either verbally or silently. These beliefs and practices are the main focus of Tauren priests, which are known as seers, and also their paladins, which are known as sunwalkers. This belief system was only recently rediscovered by the Tauren and was previously practiced by them in ages past. Night Elf Light Worship. As we'll go into later, the Night Elves worship a deity known as Elune. She is usually associated with the moon. There is some evidence, though, that Elune is also associated with the light, and that part of her aspect is of the light. This would mean that the Night Elves in their worship of Elune and their practices also participate in beliefs centered around the light. The prophet Velen has suggested to Tyrande that perhaps Elune was a Naaru based on her actions and her abilities, and especially as a being who has lived as long as he has, his insight has some credence. During the events of Legion, Khadgar found a cosmology tome suggesting that during the ordering of the cosmos, the prime Naaru Zira was created by Elune herself, perhaps implying Elune to be at least partially a being of light. It's also worthy to note that the Tears of Elune were used to open the Prime Naaru's core during Legion. More evidence to suggest this is found with Tauren worship and their story of the Earthmother. The Earthmother in Tauren mythology has two eyes, the moon, Musha, who the Tauren consider to be Elune, and the sun, Anshe, which is the brother of Musha. If the Tauren believe the moon to be Elune, then possibly the sun could be another aspect of Elune, as the sun is related to the moon in their religious mythology. Paraphrasing Anduin from Before the Storm, he says that the light finds us all. It chooses the story, the name of the song that resonates the most with each of us. We may call it Elune, or Anshe, or just the light, but it does not matter. All of this is to say that when there is a Night Elf who is a priest who uses holy abilities, they are potentially worshipping the light through their beliefs in Elune. This falls in line with a priestess of Elune becoming the first Night Elven paladin during Legion named Dallas Moonfang. Zandalari Paladins and Priests. The Zandalari, who specifically worship the Loa Rizan, are known to be able to wield the light. Zandalari are naturally very religious, as they are very keenly aware of the many different Loa or wild gods and the powers that they give to their worshippers and followers. Rizan was known as the Loa of Kings, and he was a symbol of leadership and strength to the Zandalari people. The Prelates were an organization of paladins who, through their complete faith in Rizan, were able to manifest the light's power as the highest order of holy warriors to ever serve Aloa. Because of this, they are a part of a group in Zandalari society known as the Faithful, along with priests and druids who are amongst the most revered in Zandalari society, and they're an example for others to aspire to. Because of this type of faith and willpower, these prelates could use the light. When Razan died, those who lost faith were cut off from the power in the light. But the ideals that Razan stood for remained, and so prelates and priests who continued to believe in those ideals were still able to use the light. Although Razan is gone, these Zandalari paladins and priests lead those who are lost, and through their faith in their Loa, stand as a beacon of light in the darkness. The Orc Lightbound. On alternate universe Draenor, Yrel was given visions by a Naru named the Lightmother. This Naru showed Yrel that the army of the light would march across planets in the great dark beyond, bringing its order to countless worlds. This convinced Yrel and other Draenei to start a campaign of conversion of service to the light on alternate Draenor. The name of this group is the Lightbound. It's a group formed of Draenei, Mag'har orcs, and even ogres on alternate universe Draenor who are fanatical in their beliefs and even practice forced conversion to worship and service to the light and to the Light Mother. At first, the recruitment of the orcs was done via sending out sermons, explaining they wished for the peoples of Draenor to be unified in purpose. But those who resisted were considered an infection that prevented Draenor from being whole. Many orcs converted willingly, but others had the light forced upon them, most likely similar to what we saw Xira try to do to Illidan. The last of the unified orc clans would wage war against the Lightbound, as the Mag'har would escape to Azeroth with the help of the Horde hero. Yrel and her fellow fanatical worshippers of the light and the Naru likely still remain a threat to Azeroth. Orc Lok'osh Priests. The Lok'osh are orc priests that can use the holy light. Their power stems from their beliefs and faith tied to the orc holy site Oshu'gun. Inside, the Naru Kure had been singing a song that only the spirits there at Oshu'gun could hear. An orc named Nakha wished to hear this song for herself, and after years of trying, she was finally able to hear it, and what she heard was a song of healing and renewal. The song is said to speak to the elements within, a song of the heart, a song of the spirit. Inspired by this song, she set out to put faith and willpower into this path, and to be able to teach it to other orcs for their benefit of their people. It is not an easy path for an orc to take, but those who do so never felt more connected to their people. Naturally, because of this religious path that they take, they are able to invoke the light's powers in their own special way, which are influenced by the orc's ancestral connection to Oshu'gun and the Naru within. Goblin Priests. Goblins are another outlier in their use of the light, and although most users of the light have some type of faith as well as willpower to wield it, the Goblin Priests' use of the light stems from a slightly different sort of faith, a sheer greed which fuels their desire to use the light for profit. This gives birth to an incredible willpower to do so. Goblin Priests can be considered similar to televangelists, along with the opinions people have of them. They give out blessings, though only for a cost, and often ask for gold donations in the form of a tithe. The Goblin Priest doesn't have faith in the light itself, or the Naru, etc. They have seen others pray to Elune, Razan, or even Anshe, and to be given power for their belief. So the Goblin Priests who do so have faith that they know such prayers will work, and so the light ends up working for them, because they know it's real and they've seen it work. To put it another way, they are acquisitive with respects to faith, and they want the best gods, but they have no actual loyalty to any of them. The Goblin Priest recites a prayer, and it works for them because he has faith in them. The reason he has faith in them is because he knows that they work, as he has seen them work in the past. It is a purely empirical faith which comes from his observation of the world. The Conclave of Priests of the Holy Light. Lastly, of the light-based religious groups, we have the Conclave. The Conclave is a ecumenical group of priests of different beliefs and dispositions who are a part of a new organization named the Conclave, a kind of grand church to which priestly adherents of all faiths can belong to. During the threat of the Legion's invasions, these priests came together to organize a stronger resistance to the Legion. Their hub is the Netherlight Prison, which used to house a Naru which had turned to void, and combining the powers of different priests were able to purify the Naru. The prison was then turned into a holy temple, and is now used as a base of operations in the war against the Legion. Members of different orders and beliefs and religions include the Church of the Holy Light, the Seers, the Sisterhood of Elune, and even the Cult of Forgotten Shadows. All ranks of the clergy seen within the Church of the Holy Light can be found working within. The temple continues to be used by many priests still in their daily priestly activities, as it is led by Archbishop Alonsis Fowl. Religions and beliefs centered around the shadow and the void. The cult of Forgotten Shadow. During the tumultuous time of the First War, one of the Church of the Holy Light's bishops named Natalie Celine began to research the Orc necrolytes who had invaded Azeroth. What she learned was that there was more than just the light, there was also the void. She reasoned that in the balance of both light and shadow, one can find power and knowledge beyond anything the Church of the Holy Light had ever revealed to its followers. By the time of the Second War, she had taught her teachings to others and they wielded their powers of shadow and light against the Horde. The Magi of the Kirin Tor deemed her teachings as very dangerous dark arts that needed to be locked away within Dalaran for safekeeping. After her assumed death, they traveled far and wide, gathering all the scrolls and tomes that she had penned about her teachings and hid them within Dalaran. But her doctrine of balance that she preached would later be found by Forsaken priests who retook Lordaeron years later, specifically in the Undercity. These beliefs and teachings spread throughout Forsaken culture, especially amongst those who were priests. They believe that practitioners and followers of the shadow are just as vital to the survival of life as the wielders of the light. They preach balance, and that before one can get to know and use the void, one must first know the light. Their powers still do rely on faith, just as the light does. But members of this cult practice faith in themselves. They believe that with their great powers they can cause great change on all of Azeroth, that the weak will end up leaning on them, lepers will call them Lord, and the ignorant will look to them for guidance. This heretical cult spread mainly after the Third War, and although many of its initial members were of the Forsaken, it claims members from many different races now. The cult continues to be led by Natalie, and is formally recognized as a priestly order, working unitedly within the Conclave along with all the other priestly factions. The Twilight Hammer's Cult. The Twilight's Hammer is a quasi-religious cult who reveres and worships the old gods, and wishes to bring about the Hour of Twilight to end the world. The founding of the cult has its roots on Draenor, when the exiled Pale Orcs who lived in the catacombs beneath Oshu'gun communed with the Void Lords, who sought to bring an end to all existence. Cho'Gall was sent to investigate these Pale Orcs and the Void by Gul'dan, and upon arriving they preached their prophecy of the Hour of Twilight to Cho'Gall. Cho'Gall, who wanted the Void power for himself, told these Pale Orcs that they could bring about their Hour of Twilight if they joined the Horde. But before long, as Cho'Gall began to use the Void himself, he too started to believe in the same prophecy, and he joined them in their worship of the old gods and in their quest to bring about the Hour of Twilight. The cult is fanatical and obsessed with bringing the end times in the name of the old gods. Their fanatical views can be seen in their newsletter that they write and distribute within Silithus called The True Believer. Written by high-ranking members of the cult, it allows fellow cultists to stay abreast of current impending signs of the apocalypse. Other writings and notes penned by cult members plainly speak about their worship to the old gods and their reverement of them, along with the sacrifices that they make to them. Those who wish to join the cult are required to be sent on difficult or impossible tasks, and are sorted and sifted through with deadly trials. These crazed worshippers come from all of the world's cultures and people. The largest concentration of cult members resides within Grim Batol and the Bastion of Twilight, in an area which has now been fittingly renamed to the Twilight Highlands. It's interesting to note that there is quite a few higher-up members of the Church of the Holy Light who have joined the Twilight's Hammer, such as Archbishop Benedictus, Bishop Farthing, and the Black Bishop. This could be because the Twilight's Hammer occupied Nordshire Abbey during the Second War, and they might have left behind some of their books such as Twilight Canticle, which left an imprint on some of the church members who read it. They do not consider it a possibility to leave the cult, as any who do or who disobey are accused of blaspheming the old gods and the cult, and are sentenced to death to serve as a reminder for anyone else who wishes to do the same. Qiraji and Mantid Old God Worship. The insectoid races of Akir that serve the old gods also seem to worship each respective old god, though the only ones to very specifically state that they do are the Mantid. The highly intelligent, expansionistic Mantid fervently worship their god Y'Shaarj, the most powerful and wicked of all the old gods. The Mantid say that in the long past, during the time of the old gods' Black Empire, there existed sister kingdoms such as An-Qiraj, which belongs to the Qiraji, and also Azjol-Nerub, which belonged to the Nerubians. He says their gods were many and powerful, implying that all Akir offshoots like Qiraji and Nerubian and Mantid took part in worshipping the old gods. The Mantid warns because the old gods are their gods, that if they were to ever return, that they would stand by their side again as their faithful worshippers and followers. This exact scenario happens when N'Zoth comes back, and the grand new empress of the Mantid named Shek'Zara has pledged her swarm to the old god's will. The Mantid also, in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms during its old god corruption, now also follow and worship N'Zoth. The Cult of the Void. The Cult of the Void is a group led by the Twilight Dragon Vexiona, who worships and covets the gifts of the Void. After N'Zoth granted this dragon void powers, she obsessively wanted and coveted more, and so grew a cult of like-minded worshippers who also covets the gifts of the Void. It seems she was able to reel people into this cult who were lost souls who were desperate for power. She promised them the ability to be reborn in N'Zoth's image, which is true to an extent as she transforms her worshippers into void-powered, unstoppable horrors. Alternate Universe Shadowmoon Clan. One of the Orc clans on Draenor. The Shadowmoon clan were a very spiritual, shamanistic clan who regularly communed with their ancestors for help with troubles. When the Genadar crashed on Draenor, what was left inside the piece of the ship that landed in Shadowmoon Valley was a Naru that had turned into its void state. The Shadowmoon came to call this the Dark Star. By observing it, they came to know the powers of the void, and after shamans started to use the shadowy power to defile spirits of their ancestors, it ended up being outlawed by the chieftains. When the Iron Horde started to begin its invasion of Azeroth, the clan was forced to either join or die. Grommash Hellscream also told them that he wished for them to provide a worthy power to help the Iron Horde, or he would kill them anyway as he was not interested in their spiritual practices or prophetic visions. The clan's leader Ner'zhul broke the laws that had been placed and decided to call upon the power of the Dark Star. This caused them to return to their worship of the Void and its powers as they once had in the past. Religions and beliefs centered around Fel. Sargeras worship. Sargeras, leader of the Burning Legion and one of Azeroth's greatest enemies. Many of those who serve under him no doubt revere the Dark Titan, if not outright worship him, at least among his higher echelon of servants. But there are a few outright stated instances of Sargeras being worshipped. During the War of the Ancients, Xavius and the other Highborn worshipped Sargeras as a god. Even Queen Azshara saw him as such and wished to be his queen. There is also a group of Draenei in Talador who call themselves the Cult of Sargeras, a very small faction who decided it was best to worship the Titan. This group finds itself connected to a larger group known as the Sargerai. This Cult of Sargeras believes Velen's visions have led their people wrong, and so have switched sides and worked to try to bring the Burning Legion to Draenor. Their members are mostly made up of Draenei who were born on Draenor, and their goal is to overtake the settlements of their kin in preparation for the Legion's coming. Gul'dan and his Shadow Council have blessed this group with the Fel, and joined them in Hellfire's Citadel to welcome the representative of their god Sargeras, Archimonde. Burning Legion Demon Worship. Those who end up coming into contact with the Legion and its demons find themselves more than just users of Fel. Groups like the Zerothian Cultists and the Shadow Council are known for actively worshipping and revering the Burning Legion and its demons. The Shadow Council, which was a group originally made up of Orc warlocks, believe in gaining power, influence, and control through their service and worship to the Burning Legion. This group can be considered a demonic cult, and as such, their actions are mostly done in service to further the Burning Legion's agenda, such as Gul'dan, the Shadow Council's leader, convincing the rest of the Orc people to bind themselves to the Legion by drinking Manarot's blood. The Council continues to be active in one way or another and now accepts members from all races, as long as they accept the tenets and ideology of the Burning Legion. Their cult seems to have 7 tiers of members, or circles, as they call them, as Gul'dan, its leader, is an initiate of the 7th circle, and Cho'Gall an initiate of the 5th circle. The Shadow Council also has other demonic worshipping cults and subgroups within it, each having a different task of sowing discord among those on Azeroth, or furthering the Burning Legion's goals by sowing chaos or cultivating alliances with other evil beings such as satyrs. The Veiled Hand. A human sect who worshipped the Burning Legion, which was formed during the Legion's 3rd invasion. Its members were made up mostly of the ruling council of Darkshire, and its guards, the Night Watch. They intended to bring the destruction of Stormwind to the Legion. Religions and beliefs centered around nature. Shamanism. Many races have cultures deeply rooted in shamanism, such as orcs, Tauren, and even the Wildhammer Dwarf clan. Orc culture has had mentions of shamanism as far back as their recorded history goes, and the shaman of the clans were held in high regard. They were looked to as spiritual leaders whose voice was second only to the clan chieftain. Where there is a culture that practices shamanism, you can also find spirit guidance and ancestor worship. Shamans worship the spirits through the four fundamental elements of earth, fire, wind, and water. When they commune with the spirit world, they do so in search of knowledge, guidance, and power. And when a shaman utilizes spirit guidance, it is a part of their ancestor worship as they call upon the power of their ancestors and nature to grant them strength and knowledge. Tauren are especially well known for this practice. They regularly also tell people, ancestors watch over you. Some very powerful shaman are able to directly speak to their ancestral spirits, and other times they channel tribal spirits freely or unwillingly and struggle to interpret their words. Tauren, who focus specifically on this role, are often called spirit walkers. Tauren are very aware of their long lineage that they descend from, some spanning more than 10 generations. By learning of this lineage of their ancestry, the Tauren will connect to one or two of their forefathers who they identify with, and that Tauren's life becomes an homage to their ancestor. And all through their life, that Tauren will seek guidance from and serve in the name of the spirit of that forebearer. Although there were orcs that still revere their ancestors in the ways of old as they did on Draenor, before becoming tools of the Legion, in recent times, many orcs that have broken free from the yoke of the Legion are rediscovering their old traditions with help from the Tauren. They have again started their practices of vision quests, prayer, and ancestral communion. Druidism. Druids, although tied to nature, are polytheistic in nature. Druids who are night elves might worship Elune, or Tauren druids might worship Musha. But being druids, they also hold reverence and sometimes worship for many of the ancients such as Malorn or Cenarius, or any of the other wild gods. A little known fact is that early civilizations of humanity practiced crude versions of both Druidism and Shamanism, and they had primitive belief systems that incorporated nature magic. But when the widespread adoption of worship of the Holy Light, or even following of arcane magic, the practice of these fell out of use pretty quickly. Because of Gilnean's relative isolation to the other human kingdoms, though, they were able to keep some semblance of their old ways and practices, and their people call these harvest witches. These human druids appealed to nature for the benefits of agriculture and rain. During a time of famine amongst Gilneas, the Gilnean harvest witch druids called upon the earth's blessing and restored their harvest so that they would not go hungry. After the Worgen curse spread amongst the Gilnean population, many of these harvest witches too turned into Worgen, and they found their druidic abilities enhanced. Many now have joined druid organizations like the Cenarian Circle and have since learned more about their power, and as such would start to revere the wild gods or even Elune as their night elf and Tauren brothers do. Kultirians who descend from Gilnean sailors also too practice druidism and brought harvest witches over with them to Kulturas, and so their druidic practices seem similar to those from Gilneas in its paganistic aesthetic. Religions and beliefs based on major deities. Elune. Elune, also known as the Moon Goddess, Mother Moon, the White Lady to the Night Elves, and also Musha to the Tauren. Elune is considered one of the true deities of Azeroth and is the primary goddess of the Night Elves and also the focus of their worship. She also refers to them as her favored children, though reverence for Elune is not limited to Azeroth. Full other worlds worship her as well as the people of the planet of Physandi, where the first known night warrior of Elune is from, who is also the speaker of Elune. There is a well-organized priesthood in service to Elune, and the foremost of these is the Sisters of Elune. Only women are allowed to join this priestly order in service to their goddess. Night Elven society is heavily influenced and affected by their intimate connection with Elune, as can be seen in their culture. Records of worship amongst the Night Elves date back at least 14,000 years, though she could have been worshipped and revered through more simplistic or ritualistic methods not centralized prior to this. The first center of devotion to their goddess was created by the Sisters of Elune in the Night Elven capital of Zinajari. Though when Azara and her favorite Highborn started to move further and further away from devotion to the Moon Goddess, the Sisters of Elune relocated the temple to the city of Suramar. During the time between the War of the Ancients and the Third War, the worship and reverement of Elune amongst Night Elven society has become universal, but it is practiced without a centralized place of worship. That is until the Sisters of Elune built the first Temple of Elune since the days of the Kaldori Empire in Suramar, but this time they built it in their newly created city of Darnassus. One other smaller Temple of Elune does also exist in Val-Shara, where Priestesses of Elune operate still. There is an area in Desolus where there were once 4 shrines known as Elune's Cathedral, Elune's Temple, Elune's Sanctuary, and Elune's Palace. Each of these housed a relic of Elune that were used by the ancient elves in rituals to their goddess. Tyrande Whisperwind serves in the capacity of Elune's High Priestess, and a statue of a previous High Priestess of Elune resides within the Temple of Darnassus. Elune is said to be a goddess of peace, but is not always a pacifist, and will use violence when necessary, such as when she incarnates herself into an aspect of wrath in the Night Warrior. Other evidence to this fact is shown with Priestesses of Elune being trained extensively in tactics and combat, and as such are both spiritual leaders and powerful fighters for their society. They are also taught that their goddess's teachings emphasize love and tolerance for all creatures of Azeroth. Initiates to the priestly order can find their faith tested as they try to overcome their personal prejudices. Elune expects devotion from her priestesses, but she does not demand their every waking moment. Even though the Night Elves seem monotheistic and worship Elune alone now, it seems in the past that frescoes in Suramar depicted other gods besides Elune shaping their world, and that Night Elven religion was actually polytheistic, which it still kind of is now with Night Elven druids who worship and revere both the wild gods as well as Elune. Elune has divinely intervened multiple times throughout the history of Azeroth, giving evidence of her existence. Some of the most recent being Elune speaking through Tyrande, and also her taking of Ysera's spirit, leaving behind the Tear of Elune. The Tauren also revere Elune, though they refer to her as Musha, the left eye of their god, the Earthmother. The Earthmother. The main Tauren belief system and worship revolves around a being named the Earthmother. The Tauren view her as the creator of the land and the mother of all creation. The Tauren also revere the 2 eyes of the Earthmother, Musha and Anshe, which we have gone over before. Because the Tauren view her as the progenitor of the world, they believe that they come from her and then also return to her in death. An order of Tauren priests called the Seers use the light through the worship of the Earthmother, by the wisdom of the Earthmother through the illumination of the light. A few speculations on the Earthmother's identity exist, such as potentially being the Titan Aeonar, the patron of life who also has close ties to Elune. The Earthmother could also be the Tauren's own perception or personification of Azeroth itself, and or the slumbering world soul that lies within. Bane Bloodhoof outright believes this. During the 4th War when Azeroth was dying, he said that the Earthmother was dying. Alternatively, the Earthmother may be purely a groundless belief that the Tauren hold with no basis in reality, and just taught as a way to make understanding of their world. The Skyfather. Tauren also worship a counterpart to the Earthmother known as the Skyfather. Not much is known about this Tauren deity, but when a Tauren is cremated, it is said that they return to both the Earthmother and Skyfather. As the cremated's ashes fall to the ground and the smoke rises to the sky, the Earthmother and Skyfather both welcome the honored dead. Loa Worship. The Loa, or spirit gods, are powerful beings that are regularly worshipped by trolls of all kinds. These beings share very strong commonality and relationship with the wild gods that some of the Night Elves worship and revere. There are many shapeless and formless Loa associated with all kinds of things in troll culture. Many of these reside and are represented in the Garden of the Loa in Zuldazar, and also within major temples across all troll lands. But the most powerful of these are usually in the form of an animal or some other type of creature. Powerful trolls or even high priests of certain Loa can become ascended and even become a Loa themselves. This happened in the past with the Loa of Death Mozala, who elevated his priest Bomsamdi to the status of a Loa. Another case can be seen with Zonda, who was a troll in life during the Troll Wars thousands of years ago, but has since returned as a Loa to help his people against Hakar. Usually, a priest serving a Loa will serve only that one Loa and not any others. But troll druids usually serve multiple of them, using several of their powers at once, though they do not like this as they prefer to be worshipped one at a time. Families from Zandalari and Darkspear tribes usually have a family Loa in which those born in the family worship and revere. Cities will have their own Loas belonging to them, and the greatest, most powerful of Loa amongst troll kind are worshipped by the whole nation. The trolls who worship these beings are not the only ones who benefit from it. The Loa themselves gain strength and power the more worshippers, offerings, idols, and sacrifices they have and receive. Power gained through this worship is very readily evident with Loa priests, who are able to use their faith in a Loa to bestow powers or to heal, and even enhance weaponry. Dragon worship. The Wyrmcult. A small amount of mortals view dragons as deities. The Wyrmcult, also known as the Black Wing Coven, is a group of humans, orcs, broken, and Draenei who worship the remaining survivors of the Black Dragonflight. A small group, with its base located in Blade's Edge Mountains, they seem to be breeding black whelplings. It does seem that they are under the orders of Sibelian, Raytheon's uncle, to be used in filling up his ranks, potentially for the benefit of the Black Flight. Titan worship. Some individual dwarves have chosen to worship or revere the Pantheon. When the early dwarves came out from Uldaman, they retained a bit of their earthen Titan-forged heritage, and so they revered and worshipped their creator, Khaz'goroth, as their Titan father. When they eventually came to what would become their home in Ironforge Mountain, they created an altar for him, which would later become the Great Forge, which still lies within Ironforge today. Even the dwarves' celebration of Feast of Winter Veil is in recognition of their great father Winter, whom they view as a personification of one of the Titans. Many dwarves use the expression gods or by the gods as exclamation, perhaps in reference to the Titans. A dwarf named Durgan One God has disavowed all other Titans and believes Eonar to be the one true god. By his own admission though, he states that no one else shares this faith with him. The Cult of the Damned. The Cult of the Damned is both an organization and religion in worship and service to the Lich King. Formed some years before the Third War, it was the predecessor to the Scourge and established its foothold in Lordaeron among the populace. Ner'zhul, as the Lich King, sent out telepathic waves from his frozen throne to any dark soul who lusted for power that he could use to further his agenda. He found this in the Archmage Kel'Thuzad, who went about preaching this new religion to the masses of Lordaeron, promising them immortality and an ideal free society free of all the burdens of the existing one that was forced upon its citizenry. Lordaeron's overworked laborers and disenfranchised people such as homeless and poor were taken by this charismatic individual, and they willingly sold themselves in service to the Lich King. He was even able to recruit and attract those from the wealthy and nobility by promising them the use of the lower classes to defeat their rivals and obtain greater wealth. Eventually, many of the northern towns of Lordaeron had been completely converted to these beliefs and now served the Lich King. Pledges to the cult are forced to drink a concoction that steals their will and then enslaves them to their new master. The potion contains the soul of a tormented being who was mercilessly tortured before being slaughtered. Those who are a part of the cult aspire to become undead, though they remain alive because they believe undeath is an honor one must earn. And as living beings are useful to the Lich King for spying, they recruit powerful individuals from the living into the cult. The majority of its members are made up of humans, though some are orcs, high elves, Draenei, and other races as well. The Cult of the Damned's dealings directly led to the creation of the Scourge, which was made up of those who were forcibly made undead, first through the plagued grain in Lordaeron, such as Stratholme, then by forcible reanimation, such as with Sylvanas. These raised undead are forced into worship and submission to the Lich King. The Tide Mother. The Tide Mother is a being worshipped among sailors and tide sages of Kul Tiras. Because of the Kultirians' natural relation to the sea, their history with the ocean, and their reliance on it, they look to the sea the same way other human cultures look to the light. But Tide Sage priests have a much closer connection with the water. Tide Sages are a religious organization of priests that also act like shamans of a kind. Part of their work involves blessing ships for safe travel and voyage. Many of the Tide Sages descend from the lineage of House Stormsong, and after leaving Gilneas and upon arriving in the area known as Kul Tiras, they were among the first to hear the whispers of the Tide Mother, which taught them to use the power of the sea. To guide the Kultirian people, the Tide Sages listen to the sea to guide their people and ships, as they are able to hear faint whispers from the ocean that are imperceptible to most. The power they were taught guided fish and fresh water to the sailors so they could survive. It also allowed them to command the winds to power their sails, and the hulls of their ships even became impenetrable to anything under the ocean. The Tide Sages also sent out guides to bring others to the newly formed nation as well. These priests played a vital role in the early history of Borralis when it was just houses built on rocks near the ocean with no seawall to protect it at all. Tide Sages are deeply appreciated and beloved in Kultiran society, as each and every ship has one for the safety of all and to prevent them from coming to a watery end. The main temple Tide Sages worship and operate in is the Shrine of the Storm. Within it lie 3 magical wards called the Tide Mother's Wrath, Pride, and Radiance, and they are said to be gifts from the sea itself. These allowed the Kultiran fleet to sail through even the most fearsome storms in the past, though they now offer protection to Kul Tiras from within the temple. To enter the shrine, one must be deemed worthy by being able to wield the Rod of Tides, which our player character is actually able to do, implying that the Tide Mother deemed our character worthy. During a time in the Kultiran's past, it is said that the Tide Mother herself saved Borralis from being destroyed by a great storm. Her magic swept through the harbor like lightning, empowering the mermaids that live within the ocean nearby to put up a giant seawall to protect the city. Speculation on what the Tide Mother is quite wide. She could potentially be a powerful water elemental keen on helping the Kultirans. Another theory suggests that they may be the natural element and spirit of water, which shamans know quite well. Humans do not normally practice shamanism, but the Tide Sages might be less priests and more akin to shamans, who are able to hear the whisper of the element of water as a shaman would. She might also just be a loon. In Drustvar, there lies a memorial to lost sailors who are said to look to the White Lady, Azeroth's moon, which represents a loon, to guide them, and who they revered to keep them safe. The statue itself lies broken, but clearly it is one of the statues that depict a loon which can be found on the broken shore. Minor deities and groups. The Wickerites. In Drustvar, a group of humans have abandoned their homes and their lives to join a cult in the worship of the Wicker Man. The Wicker Man seems to just be a dormant wicker construct created by the Heartsbane Coven, humans who have been corrupted by Drust magic. These constructs are powered by human souls, and the cult's goal has been to try to appease the construct by bringing it offerings. At the time that they are disbanded and destroyed by the player hero, they are in the midst of sacrificing a person to it. The Bone Speakers. The Bone Speakers are a zealot religious group of mystic Vrykul who live in Stormheim and who care for the bodies of honored Vrykul dead. Their job is taking care of these bodies, entombing them, and taking care of the grounds in which they lie, and they take their job very seriously. Troll Voodoo. Voodoo is another troll religious practice, and this dark art, while not practiced by all trolls, is at least widespread as cannibalism is amongst the trolls. Its main practitioners are troll shadow hunters, hexers, and witch doctors. The history of its emergence is debated as the tribes that would have access to this information are unwilling to share it. It is theorized, though, to have originated within Zandalari. The trolls who practice voodoo often use a substance known as mojo within their rituals. Mojo is extracted from other trolls or other animals. It has also been known to be taken from fallen Loa and can be used to enhance troll priest abilities. Even among those who employ voodoo, they view the drinking of blood and gaining its power to be the darkest of voodoo. Death Priests. The Death Priests were a group of priests made up from Draenei from Auchenai, and for 500 years they watched over the dead in Auchendoon. To become one of these Death Priests, a special potion would be made and consumed for the priest to be able to see into the veil, though it caused many who consumed it to go mad. Lord Arkarok, the demigod of sea giants. He apparently is a lesser deity, according to Loramus Thalapides, who resided in his own temple within Azshara. His followers are called Arkurin and were made up mostly of Murlocs and Makrua found in and around the Arkoran temple in Azshara. Borrok the Devourer, a lava worm that can be found in Frostfire Ridge, which is worshipped by the Grimfrost ogres of Grimfrost Hill. Speaking of ogres, modern-day ogres of Blade's Edge Mountain worship Gruul as a deity, and the Warmaul ogres of Nagrand worship the earth elemental Gurok the Usurper. Tuskar Deities. The Tuskar have a few different beings that they worship. One of them is a being named Tetyutka. It was said to have guided the Tuskar's ancestors to their home in Kaskala. An altar to her can be found just outside of town. The Tuskar also have a god of death, in whom they say watches over their dead and fallen, so that they do not lose their way, named Karkut. They also say that they are currently walking the earth, gathering the spirits of dead Tuskar. It's speculated that this god of theirs might actually be the Lich King, or perhaps an entity in the Shadowlands, or even just a Tuskar personification of death itself. The Tuskar deity, Spirit of War, is named Islaruk, who is depicted as a silver eagle. They also seem to worship a kraken named Oakanoa, but it actually seems to be a Loa. Actually, all of the beings worshipped by Tuskar seem to be Loa as well. Agamagan. Quillboar are known to worship a deity named Agamagan, the great boar who is one of the ancients. This is another instance of wild god Loa worship, which many of the lesser races of Azeroth seem to practice. Arakkoan Deities. The Arakkoa worship the sun goddess Rukmar, and those who have fallen to the curse of Seath worship Anzu. Both have religious groups and beliefs centered around them, such as the Arakkoans, who live in the village of Grishnath with their oracles, stating that their god Anzu would soon be returning. Another group, the Raven Speakers, are a group of Arakkoan cultists who worship Anzu's consort named Kaalu, the Raven Mother. All three of these Arakkoan deities seem to have similarities to other wild gods or Loa. Murloc religious practices. Murloc faith is said to be quite strange, and although religion plays a large part in their society, they do not worship one singular common god. Their religion then is possibly polytheistic and even a bit shamanistic. They have been known to commune with the sea and its powers, and to worship the water and the powerful entities that lie deep within it. Murlocs have worshipped a Naga sea witch named Zarjira on the Darkspear Islands until Thrall destroyed their cavern of worship. Their pantheon of gods they believe in seems to change based on powerful entities or individuals that they come across, adding or removing gods who they worship as they see fit. A Murloc tribe may, for instance, venerate or worship a whale, until a sea serpent comes along and drives it away. Then their belief structure changes, and the focus is now on the sea serpent and worshipping it instead. Creatures that exemplify desirous Murloc qualities, such as the strong shark or quick fish, are religious symbols to the Murloc faith. Murlocs might have some involvement also in worshipping old gods as well, especially N'Zoth, with his connection to the ocean and Ajara. Monks. Pandaren monks spread their beliefs and teachings, which they have taken from the August Celestials, and use them to practice inner peace. And they also seek spiritual focus while viewing the world through a lens of serenity and mindfulness, though they do not necessarily have to worship the August Celestials, or anything else for that matter. They are still spiritually minded though, and even their resource ability is the Eastern philosophy of Qi or life force energy. To be a monk, you do not have to worship the August Celestials as gods, but rather seek to embody the ideals that they represent and actively practice them in your life. These ideals are courage, serenity, tenacity, and hope. Though there is an order of Pandaren monks and priests who do venerate Qiji the August Celestial. They are called the Crane Wing Order. Cross. The Scumblade tribe of Sarok who reside on the Isle of Thunder worship their god named Cross. The Sarok Scumblade Priests promote the idea that the Sarok were not created by the Mogu, but were evolved by the Devil Sar in the sky named Cross, who is their creator. The Echo of Cross can actually be summoned and fought, showing that the being was indeed real in the past. And Sarok also are able to get the blessing of Cross, showing that it blesses its worshippers. Kroshik is a Devil Sar on the Isle of Thunder who is said to be a gift from Cross, and it seems to be a demigod, as Kroshik hatches from an egg, grows into a full Devil Sar until the Sarok kill it, sacrifice it, and eat it. But then a new egg appears, and Kroshik hatches yet again over and over. Both Cross and Kroshik may be wild gods or Loa. Afterlife religious beliefs. Tauren and Orcs believe that their ancestors still hang around interacting with them, and there is evidence that they do. Night Elves continue to hang around as wisps before continuing on, interacting and helping their people. Wam Samdi takes into his hands many spirits of trolls into the afterlife, which can be seen at the necropolis in Nazmir. Kultirans, especially Tide Sages, view the afterlife as returning to the sea. Many different people of different beliefs do end up going to their respective afterlives associated with their life practices, such as Vrykul, who revere Odin, being taken to the Halls of Valor, or those who do not deserve to go there, to Helheim. Humans who practice good deeds in life based on their practicing the beliefs of the worship of the light might end up in Bastion in the Shadowlands, or perhaps may even go to the Lightlands. Druids who are especially tied to nature and their worship of the wild gods may go to the Lifelands. It is shown that what you do in your life and your actions, if evil or full of malice, do change where you go, such as Garrosh, or other people who have done heinous things going to Revendreth to atone for their sins. Others who have done truly unspeakable acts would be condemned to the maw, such as Arthas. So it stands to reason that following religious beliefs of the light and doing good is a great way to avoid eternal damnation. Whether some adherents of specific religions or beliefs know that where they end up is based on their deeds is not fully known, though they may have an idea now that our heroes have returned from the Shadowlands. Religious funerary practices. There is quite a range of practices in which each race buries its dead, but some are connected to their faith. Most humans follow the Church of the Holy Light, and so they bury their deceased in cemeteries. After a war, the church will organize ceremonies for those who have passed and prepare the bodies for burial based on tradition. For instance, in Gilneas, it is tradition that a small memento of the person be placed on top of the grave, but below the shallow earth. Humans living in the Stranglethorn Valley have a tradition where they remove the weapons from a corpse before burial, as they believe a soul cannot rest if they carry the cause of their death with them forever. Since the Scourge has appeared, some humans have preferred to be cremated when they die, so that they are not able to be reanimated and raised into undeath. Humans living in Kul Tiras, for the most part, do not bury their dead, but instead send them out to sea. Their tide priests use an ornate bell to call the souls of the recently deceased to them. These souls are then released into the rivers that flow through their temple in the Shrine of the Storm, and then out into the open sea. Though in Drustvar, one can find large cemeteries showing that the people there had different traditions than their fellow humans in Borealis. The Maruk Centaur tribe believe that the spirits of their dead live with Onara in the sky and run alongside her on the winds. When a mystic of their clan dies, a sacred Ohuna bird carries their spirit to Windsong Rise, where they become one with wind and sky. Goblins believe in their life that status is everything. The wealthier and more well-known they were in life, the bigger and more exaggerated and extravagant their funeral will be. Their tradition dictates that goblins be buried with their most valuable possessions, so that they can enjoy them in their afterlife, called the Everlasting Party. The height of a goblin funeral party consists of the reading out loud of the assets the deceased accumulated in their life. This is done in front of the deceased's family and rivals in order to inspire feelings of jealousy. Night Elf burial is meant to let the deceased naturally go back into nature. Priestesses of Elune cleanse the body in a moon well and use arcane and nature magic to make the body viewable for one last viewing of those attending the funeral. The priestesses sing a song of the deeds of their life, after which the remains are then taken to a grove and placed on the ground. A Night Elven druid then causes growth in nature and colorful blooms to cover over the body. The Night Elves believe that Elune takes the valiant with her across the sky, riding as stars. Tauren bury their dead on funeral pyres, as they hope that their ashes fall to the Earthmother below and their smoke to the Skyfather above. And the Vrykul of Stormheim are interred by the Bone Speakers there, especially valiant Vrykul such as kings, thanes, and brave warriors, so that they can then be judged by Odin. So, there it is. Every bit of lore pertaining to religion and its practices, sects, cults, and even the forces and deities people worship in Warcraft. There was quite a lot more than I thought there would be. It gives insight and perspective to the peoples who live on Azeroth and why some of them do the things that they do. It was incredibly fun to research and to make this video, as I personally learned a lot. Which of the Warcraft religions did you find most interesting? Which did you have no idea about? Did I miss anything? Let me know down below. I really hope you enjoyed this extra long video of some of the lesser known and talked about lore of Warcraft. If you found it elucidating and enlightening, then please join me again to discuss more mundane obscure lore in the World of Warcraft. This is Stormwind University, signing off.